You wouldn't hand every new employee a master key to every room in the building. The server room, the safe, the CEO's office, all of it. You'd give them a key to exactly the doors they need, and nothing more. That simple idea is the entire job of a service called IAM, Identity and Access Management. It's the part of AWS that decides who is allowed to do what. And once it clicks, the rest of AWS gets a lot less scary. Let's break it down. IAM stands for Identity and Access Management. It's the service that controls access to everything else in your AWS account. Here's why it matters so much. Every single action in AWS, creating a server, reading a file, deleting a database, goes through IAM first. IAM is the bouncer at the door of every service. Before anything happens, it asks two questions. Who are you? And are you allowed to do this? The first question is authentication, proving your identity. The second is authorization, checking your permissions. IAM handles both. And here's the good news. IAM is free, and it's built on just 4 building blocks. Let's meet them. The first building block is a user. A user is an identity for a single person or a single application, something that needs to interact with AWS. It has its own name and its own credentials for signing in. When you first open an AWS account, you get what's called a root user. That's the all-powerful owner account tied to your email. And the very first piece of advice everyone gives is, don't use the root user for day-to-day work. It's too powerful. Instead, you create individual IAM users with only the access they actually need. Think of users like named badges. Each person gets their own, so you always know who did what. Now, imagine you've got 10 developers and they all need the same access. You could set permissions on each of them, one by one, 10 times over. But that's tedious, and the moment something changes, you've got 10 things to update. That's what groups are for. A group is just a collection of users who share the same permissions. You create a group called developers. You attach the right permissions once, and every user you drop into that group inherits them automatically. Add a new hire, put them in the group, done. Someone leaves the team, take them out. Groups are about convenience and consistency. They don't log in themselves. They're just a way to manage permissions for many users at once. The third building block is the one people find trickiest, so stay with me. It's genuinely useful. A role is an identity with permissions, but, and this is the key, it has no permanent password or credentials, and it isn't tied to one specific person. Instead, a role is something that can be assumed temporarily by whoever or whatever needs it. The most common use, letting AWS services talk to each other. Say you have a server that needs to read files from storage. You don't paste a password onto that server. Instead, you give the server a role and it temporarily becomes that identity, with exactly the permissions the role allows, for as long as it needs. The picture I like, a role is a high-vis vest hanging by the door. Nobody owns it. When you need to do that job, you put it on, you get the access that comes with it, and when you're done, you hang it back up. So users, groups, and roles are the identities. But what actually defines the permissions? That's the fourth building block, policies. A policy is a document, written in a format called JSON, that spells out what's allowed and what's denied. You don't need to read code here, just know the shape of it. Every policy answers 3 things: which actions, like read a file or launch a server, on which resources, like one specific storage bucket, and whether the answer is allow or deny. You attach policies to your users, groups, and roles. That attachment is what grants the access. No policy, no permission. By default, IAM says no to everything until a policy says yes. There's one principle that ties this whole service together, and it's worth tattooing on your brain: least privilege. It means you give every identity the minimum access it needs to do its job, and nothing more. Not admin access just in case. Just the specific doors they need to open. Why? Because if a user's credentials ever leak or an application gets compromised, the damage is limited to only what that identity could do. Least privilege turns a potential disaster into a minor inconvenience. Start lockdown and open up access only when something actually needs it. That's the mindset. Let's stack it back up. IAM is the bouncer for your whole AWS account. Users are individual identities. Groups bundle users together to manage them easily. Roles are temporary identities that services and people can assume when needed. And policies are the documents that define exactly what any of them can do, following the principle of least privilege. Get this one service right, and everything else in AWS rests on a solid, secure foundation. That's IAM, the answer to who can do what in AWS. If this made access control click for you, hit subscribe, because we're breaking down AWS one service at a time. And drop a comment with the service you want explained next. See you in the next one.